So, in a different study, research analyzing footage of 577 stops of Black drivers found the first 45 words spoken by the officer, or the first 30 seconds, could determine how that encounter ended, which was really interesting. I actually took a moment to think about that. So, in that study, 1 out of 6 ended in escalation. Researchers also assessed 267 incidents with white drivers, but could only find 4 that escalated out of all of that. Not 1 in 6, but 4 out of all of them. So significantly more with the Black drivers. So basically, if the police officer began the encounter by issuing a command or not giving a reason why they stopped the driver, it was 3 times more likely that that interaction would escalate, that the driver could be searched or handcuffed or arrested, versus if the police officer began with a greeting and explained why the driver had been pulled over before barking orders at them. I mean, yeah, it's a difference between compliance and defensiveness, right? Like cause someone comes at you with a hostile demeanor, it's natural to put up your guard and to, defend yourself, especially with all the ancillary noise of the multi-generational stuff we were just talking about. So it's not even like you're just walking into these things with a clean slate, naive to the possibilities. You're like, oh my God, it's happening to me. Whereas if they just kind of greeted you and acted normal, because I've never been pulled over and treated that way, uh, it's hard to put yourself in those shoes. So never mind the awkwardness and atypical nature of just being berated by an officer right off the bat, but then having this knowledge, this foresight, this experience, this shared experience that this is how it could go, and might actually be happening to me. I mean, that's terrifying. That's
I mean,
absolutely terrifying.
I want to put it in another context as well, because I think that too often people like to lean into the uh, almost the victim blaming, where it's like they did what did this person do to piss off the officer? How did this person engage the officer to make them uh, act in an inappropriate manner, which is kind of wild when you're talking about someone who's supposed to be upholding the law. And basically, they're supposed to they should be above reproach. Ideally, officers should be paramount. They should be paragons essentially of our society. They should be people who never get in trouble and are always following the law. Which you just, I mean, if you ever driven behind a cop, you can watch them break the speed limit, run a red light, do all sorts of things because they have power, as opposed to trying to be an example of what you should be doing. If you follow them, they're usually an example of what you shouldn't be doing, but you can't do it because you're not a cop and they are a cop. So try that one on for size in terms of hypocrisy. But I guess what I was really just getting at is that if you have these interactions, it's similar to going into a restaurant and saying, uh, it's basically you say 1 out of 6 times when you go up to order something, they don't respond to you, and then you wonder why it gets escalated from there. I mean, I feel like that's how we should be. It should be as simple as that. It's like, well, what do you think happens when 1 out of 6 times you go to order a burger and they don't respond? You say, can I
Or
have a
let's
burger?
say
And they
like,
just look at you plainly, and they just look at you, and they just never say anything to you. I mean, naturally, your first response is going to be an escalation of why aren't you taking my order? Like that frustration
say
of, well, this is so weird. Why is this happening right now? That is basically the element of that's how mundane what we're talking about here in terms of the police. We're saying that 1 out of whatever the number you quoted for Black interactions is as egregious as that. 1 out of these times, someone stops you, walks up to your window, and doesn't say a word, and you're just sitting there like, okay, what am I supposed to do here? This is unnatural. It's an unnatural way of what you'd expect to be unfolding, in the same way as going into a restaurant and trying to order and having absolutely nobody listen to you. Anyway,
I think that's a great way of putting it. I was also, I think I like the way you framed it better. Um, what I was going to add to that is it's almost like you accidentally walk out without paying, confused maybe, that happens, and they
yeah,
come after
of
you and they're
course.
like, "Excuse me, sir, you forgot to pay or whatever, you forgot to do something." It's a difference of them like tackling you or pushing you around versus like greeting you and saying, "Excuse me, you forgot to do this." Like, it just because you did something wrong doesn't mean that you should automatically be reprimanded in a way as if you are non-compliant starting out. It's just,
Well, I mean, that's the position you're starting out without. See, in your scenario there, when the person comes out to confront the person who has the individual who has skipped on the bill, you're presuming an element of innocence. You're assuming that it was a mistake and they just
yeah,
forgot, and you're just reminding them to say, "Hey, I know that you're really busy. I saw you had like a 3 year old that was throwing up all over the place, and you just skipped out. You ran out. You forgot to pay the bill." They'll be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll come in and pay the bill." The tackling is presuming guilt. You're saying that this person is nefarious based on the color of their skin. You're making these assumptions. You're saying that something is wrong because I know this kind. I know these types of people. They're always trying to get one over. We got to nip this in the bud in order to send a message, in order to teach them a lesson. And that's racism. If anyone's wondering what racism is, well, that's racism. There, that right there, that is how it is. That's how it manifests. That's racism, people. If you do not presume innocence and you automatically presume guilt based on a number of things that you think you know about an individual without actually knowing that individual, well, that's you acting on your prejudices. And when it's institutionalized, it becomes an element of racism. So,
yeah, it kind of blows my mind because thinking about this as I was reading it, and maybe it's 99 out of 100, maybe it's not 100%, but I cannot think of a time that I have ever been pulled over, regardless of what the infraction was, where the first words out of their mouth wasn't, do you know why I pulled you over? It's usually, do you know why I pulled you over, license and registration, or license and registration, do you know why I pulled you over? But it's all in the same breath, and it's all very mechanical. If anything, it feels impersonal. They're not trying to be my friend, but it's definitely like, do you know why I pulled you over? No or yes. And then it's conversational. There is an exchange, and I am informed very quickly upfront of why I am in this situation. It's not keep your hands on the wheel, don't touch that, whatever it may be that the Black community is going through. It's just, I can't even put myself in that situation. Never mind, again, the mindset of even, all the potentially deadly outcomes that could happen
by the
as
way,
this
everyone, the
progresses.
"Do you know why I pulled you over?" is an element of entrapment. They want you to admit guilt. That way, it makes it harder to contest the ticket. So
Oh, there
just
you
let
go.
it's just a
There
little
you go.
tip for to anyone who wants to take that one home. I'm not saying
There you
be
go,
rude or
folks.
anything. I'm just letting you know that every question they're asking you is a pointed question that would basically hurt you if you were to try to contest in a court of law. So
There you go. Learn something new every day. If you took anything away from this episode, it's that.